To begin with your drawing board, you'll want a board larger than your painting surface. If you haven't already gotten one of these, you can go to any hardware store and get either Masonite or MDF board cut to your specific size. Next, we'll be attaching the painting surface to the board. You'll want to center your paper with the board. To do this, measure the width of the board to find the center. Once you find the center of the board, line up the center of the paper and begin taping. To tape, you'll need to cover all four sides of your painting surface. Try to shoot for about a 1/4 inch of overlap on your paper. You don't want to cover too much with tape. Once all four sides are completely covered in tape, make sure that they are anchored in place. You can run your fingernail between the edge of the paper and the tape. I prefer using a glass palette as they're easy to scrape, they're easy to work with, their surfaces are smooth, and they allow for easy paint mixture. They're very durable and you can get years out of one if you properly take care of it. Store your palette in a plastic container larger than the palette with a wet rag, and it will preserve your paint between sessions. When setting up, it's preferable to space your colors out before applying them to the palette. This will give you space to keep your paints from accidentally mixing. Set your paint daubs at the edge of your palette to allow more workable space in the middle. I prefer setting up my palette with earth tones on the side, then moving to the brighter colors arranged by color types. For example, cooler colors like blues and greens should be grouped, and warmer colors like reds and oranges should be grouped similarly. Black and white should always be set to the side to avoid corruption. Once you have your colors arranged on your palette, collect your other materials. Keep your palette knife handy for mixing and collect the brushes you will be using for your project. It's ideal to have water and your mixing fluid at hand as well. It's ideal to set up your workspace depending on your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I keep my painting supplies on my right-hand side. This will help you keep your workspace clean. You can also acquire an easel if you'd like. They're not required. This little tabletop easel I found on Amazon for $25 is pretty cheap. The most important thing to remember is you will want to work in a upright angle. If you're sitting and your work is flat on the table, it'll skew and your artwork will suffer for it. You can even prop your board up on your lap or borrow an extra chair just to have a good view of your work while you're painting. This chair is a good example of an impromptu easel. To begin mixing your paint, use your palette knife to gather paint from the edge of your daubs. Clean off your palette knife in between gathering the colors to keep your palette clean. Work the colors into each other as if you're mixing dough. Try to mix out any streaks to get a uniform color. You can remove any excess paint from your palette knife by simply using your brush to wipe it off. When you have your color mixed, it will begin loading your brush by kind of sweeping up the paint. I recommend not mixing colors with your brush as the paint may not mix evenly. Excess paint can also get trapped in the brush and clump in the bristles. It's just bad for the brush and bad for your mix. When you're cleaning out your brush, you will want to take your towel or rag and massage the paint out of the bristles. Then stir your brush in the water well. Stir your brush vigorously to dislodge the paint out of the bristles. You'll test the bristles by using the edge of the container to see how much paint is left in the brush. Once it looks like there's no longer any paint left, dry it off with your towel, again massaging the bristles to remove any excess paint that may have gotten trapped in the bristles, and put it back in your stack. To begin painting with a medium consistency of your paint, load your brush with a little bit of fluid. Then take that mixture and apply it evenly to your surface. You can use any application method depending on the stylistic textural choices you were trying to make in your work. We'll be using a few different brushes in this course. Round brushes tend to be the round, soft bristled brushes. They leave these nice little skinny marks, and their sides are ideal for using washes. Flats are ideal for certain drawing. They have a pretty consistent line weight. They're also good for broad application of paint. Angled brushes are ideal for hard edges when you're trying to achieve a hard edge. Reach for an angled brush. Once we're finished painting and the piece is complete, you'll have to remove the tape from the surface. To do this without ripping your paper, you must wait until the paint is completely dry on your surface. Removing the tape will require you to pull the tape at 90-degree angles from your work, as shown here. Pull it slowly to avoid tears. If it seems like it's beginning to tear, stop and proceed pulling from the other direction. You may use a straight edge or a ruler to control any rips that may happen, but the key is being aware of how the materials are acting. Clean up your palette. With glass palettes, it's best to use a razor scraper. These help remove the paint, but even caked on paint sometimes needs a little help. In this case, use your atomizer to wet the surface of the paint. Even waiting just a couple of seconds before scraping causes the paint to just come right off. Always use water to clear your palette, as it will break down the molecular chains of the acrylics. If you have a plastic palette, the best suggestion to clean it is to soak it in warm water and let the paint soften. Then remove the paint with your fingers or a towel. To clean your brushes, run warm water and get a little bit of soap on your hand. Massage the paint out of the bristles. Continue massaging the soap into the brush and then rinse frequently. Continue this until you see no paint left in the brush. Some brushes may become stained from certain pigments. This is not a concern, as the brush is still workable. However, it'll just be dyed that color. It's important to rinse out your water cup in between sessions, as you will be frequently washing your brushes during your session. Paint will accumulate, so simply rinse out the cup so a residual acrylic will not set on the bottom of the cup. When you're finished, you can put your brushes in your water cup and call it a day. And this has been the basics of setting up your workspace.